Hello, and thank you for joining me on this Patreon exclusive show. So just as a quick little introduction here, I have recently been trying to find ways I can add content that doesn't take up time I spend on other things. And one thing I thought was hey, I could probably record stuff in my car while I'm heading home from work on the one day I have to go into the office. So I went ahead and started up this little car talk show or whatever, where I'm just start chatting. And I've been doing them for a little while just to kind of test and see how it would go. And I wasn't quite sure when I'd actually start posting them. So in the beginning of this, you're not going to really hear much of an introduction. And most of these probably won't have that much of an introduction in general. But I just wanted to let you know that this is basically just me talking about stuff in a car, whether it be something I thought about or maybe something that I might have where I prepare something to just chat about on my drive home, essentially. So it's basically a even more raw version of the main podcast itself in some ways. So it is gonna be, so the audio quality isn't super amazing, but I think I'm getting to the point where I feel it's honed in, and I felt the topic of this episode was a good starting point maybe for the show. So even though this is technically the third or fourth time I've recorded one of these, I'm gonna go ahead and make this the first real episode of the show, even though I was not intending for that when I actually recorded it. So anyways, here you go. Thanks for again for subscribing to the Patreon.
It's been actually a little bit since I recorded the last.
Here we go.
I don't know. Right now I'm calling this the car talk at the moment, but whether that is a good or accurate name is a whole other thing. But here I am. So yeah. One thing I was thinking a little bit about this actually, and if for some reason you're the person who was talking to me about this, and you're listening to this, don't worry about what I'm about to say. It's not me having any statement on what you have. It's just something that I've thought about from time to time, because if you don't know, I have a pretty long history of people, maybe not people, maybe myself, honestly, saying that the games I like are bad games or whatever. Actually, I don't want to be in this lane. Sorry, dude behind me. The games I like are bad games, and it used to be something I said all the time because it's probably the easiest thing to do. Obviously, I'm playing games that are, problematic in a lot of ways, like Blue Stinger, things like that. And so I would be like, oh, I like bad games because they're games that people didn't receive super well. But one thing I kind of ran into the problem with when I would say that is two things specifically. From a perception standpoint of somebody listening to me, it basically boiled down my opinion to them to, oh, you like bad games, therefore, you're just going to talk about these bad games all the time without thinking about why I like the games. I like them because they're bad is kind of what they would end up being the final point of it. And, but I would find in situations that people would try to give me bad games and be like, Ben, hey, you're going to enjoy this because it's bad. I'm like, well, it being bad, I don't really like a bad game either. I need a game to be fun and entertaining, and sometimes that includes, things that can be bad. And I think there are situations where something is so bad it's interesting, right? Big fan of that Soul Brain series on PlayStation Mobile, right? Soul Brain's terrible, and it's silly fun because of that, as well as Lady Santa. Trying to think of anything, maybe something a little more high profile. Dragon Ball Z Final Bout or whatever on PlayStation 1. I'd say that's a game that's interesting because it is so bad. But that's not that is a very rare exception for me though, where playing it is basically a joke in a lot of ways, for better or for worse, right? But when I look at games like Castlevania, Blue Stinger, and things like that, that's not why I like those games. I don't like them because they're bad. There's interesting ideas there. Maybe they're not looked over in the same ways that a more high profile game would be. And so sitting down and being able to kind of move the bad stuff to the side and be like, what is this game that's doing that's actually really cool? I think that's what I care about more than anything. So I've had in the past some other people reach out to me, and this kind of comes back to if you're the person who was talking to me about this, don't think anything of this is just something I've thought about over the years in general, is the idea of Kusoge, which if you don't know is basically for all intents and purposes, it means shit game in Japanese, and it's like an actual phrase that people would use, to my understanding. But like exactly what the meaning of that phrase is a whole other thing. I think the first time I heard about it was from Vink at Famicom Dojo. I think he mentioned it on like a TV broadcast once and felt kind of bad. And I was like, oh yeah, interesting. That's an interesting phrase. But basically, it just means like bad game. But it seems like to some degree, or at least to me, Kusoge really always had just meant bad game. So I kind of avoided it in the exact same way as people, or as I would with like saying I like bad games in general. But I've had people like reach out to me and be like, hey, I really appreciate that you also appreciate Kusoge. But I think there's something different about like appreciating Kusoge versus the way I like those kind of games, because I don't usually appreciate them because they're bad. It's usually I appreciate them because of other stuff going on, which to my understanding might be also the case with how people refer to Kusoge. It's one of those things that's like hard to know, because I've heard people use Kusoge in a lot of different ways, and like I don't feel like there's like a common definition of it in the West. Possibly because it is like a loner term. I've heard it been used in a negative context. I don't hear it used in a positive context super often, but I have heard it used in a positive context before. And I have no idea how Japanese audiences feel about that term. But in some ways, I think people refer to it as like use it as a term to talk about like an endearing bad game, like a bad game that people like. And they linked me like a video to Korone, the VTuber, little dog VTuber, her talking about Kusoge a little bit, and another VTuber, I forget their name, it was a Western one, maybe not really a VTuber, they just kind of have like the avatar on screen that they kind of like animate. I'm trying to remember, like there was some other group that does it. It's like not like a tracking, I guess it's like that. It's not like Live 2D. It is just like they have an avatar that they switch between different like poses and expressions based off, you know, what they're saying on screen, you know, like in the editing process, I'd imagine, kind of thing. Versus like a VTuber, you're typically like have it mapped to your body, and that is kind of your personality. But I think in all intents and purposes, it's the same thing, right? We're going on a tirade. This is the kind of stuff that's going to happen. Well, this also happens on my podcast, but this is probably going to happen more often in these car talk things. But I watched their video about that, and they talked about it in like that more endearing sense kind of thing. So I kind of get that, but I really just don't think that is something that I personally feel like I relate to in a lot of ways, because when I talk about the games that I talk about, and this kind of comes back to the original point, is like I don't really feel like I don't love them because they're bad usually them being bad is just kind of a side effect of how it is, and sometimes that's like an effect of the design decisions they made, so I like appreciate the design decisions that they did make, but other times it can just be a literal barrier to getting somebody to, you know, play a game. I'm trying to think of a game that I would love to recommend to people, but like it being bad just kind of gets in the way. I think Industrial Spy Operation Espionage sure is one, because that is probably actually a bad game. But there are things about it that I do really like, and I like the concepts in place. But even like Castlevania 64, like I think it's interesting about how the level design is in that game, in terms of just like being both a 3D platformer and an action game all in one. I don't really feel like there are many other games that try to do that, at least to the extent that Castlevania 64 does. And like it makes parts of the game bad because of that decision that they made, but it doesn't make it like a bad game in my opinion. So anyways, that was just a thought I had, and something I was thinking about because somebody reached out to me about it, and then like was talking about, I don't know if they were specifically talking about just one video I had, but like other videos that potentially being kind of like an appreciation of Kusoge. But like, I don't know, Totally Spies, Totally Party. That's a video that went up recently, went up today actually, as of I'm recording this. That's a game that is bad, but I don't know if I would like it because it's bad. The bad parts is actually the frustrating parts, right? There's nothing about the bad elements that I think make that game more entertaining. It just makes it harder to appreciate, I feel like. So yeah, there's my little ramble. There's my little squiggly squaggly mouth noise adventure. I'm getting into traffic. That's always cool. I really hate, like, you know, I don't want to say too much. I always feel bad being like, oh, these things were kind of like nice pluses of pandemic, but like not having to worry about traffic as much was always like a really nice thing. And now that we're back to pretty much most people, I think, just kind of operating per usual, traffic has really kicked back up here in Vegas. And it makes it annoying to drive home and drive to work sometimes, or even escape my apartment complex because my apartment complex is on kind of a busy road. So multiple accidents in front of my apartment complex recently, actually. I think there's like 3 in a row, like within like a week, 3 different cars just like crashed into each other. I think the problem is that the people who tried to like turn over into the apartment complex have to cross like 3 lanes of traffic, and the first 2 lanes will close, and then the last lane won't, and or we'll still have cars coming through. Sorry, I was watching some guy. We'll still have cars coming through, and it's like the furthest away lane, so it's like really hard to tell, you know, that if a car is coming or not. So they go for the first 2 lanes because the cars are all stopped. Then the third lane they can't really see, so they try to get through, and then they get slammed by a car. That is my best guess at what's happening there. I have not seen any of the accidents in person at this point, so I've been fortunate myself to not be in too many car accidents outside of one that happened with me and a tree branch that fell on a road in the middle of the night once. And yeah, that was exciting. So fun times. But yeah, I'm not really sure if I should always record these until I get home, or like, hey, I talked about the Kusoge thing, and now I have finished saying what I'm gonna say, right? So I don't know if that's the situation, but one thing I can say is I'll probably talk about this on the podcast, but I accidentally spiked my phone into a table. I dropped my phone and tried to catch it, and then in the process of trying to catch it, slammed my hand on the phone and smacked it into a table, and like slammed into the corner of the table and cracked the screen, and like the screen does not work. So it is not like I'll have a cracked screen and can work, like use this for a while. And no, it was just like instantly dead. So that was fun. Unfortunately, my workplace actually relies pretty heavily on having a phone, and generally, I don't really want to be like completely disconnected from being able to call, say like 911 if I need to, ideally. So I went to the closest T-Mobile and just kind of got what I could get. I did get a pricey phone, unfortunately. So that is something that's in my life now. Although maybe, and I always say this every time I get a phone, it's like maybe in purchasing a new expensive phone, that means I can, play some more mobile games, and I'll probably play one game. It'll probably be Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier, and then I'll be like, oh man, cool, I did it, and then never again. Although this time with this phone, I believe there's an HDMI out option. I think I just have to use like a USB-C to HDMI out connector. So potentially I could stream some The First Soldier for Android or something like that. Which I mean, I would like to play The First Soldier, and I wouldn't mind streaming it at some point. Or just recording some gameplay. I don't know. Problem with those games is like I don't want to make a video about it per se, because it's always evolving, right? So like making any kind of video that's like set in time is gonna be a big pain. Hey, people, let me over. I need to get in this other lane so I can get home. Thank you. So yeah, exciting driving, right? So I have this new phone. Actually, I was actually gonna go grocery shopping, but I just remembered I have a phone case in the mail that should have arrived. Did not check to make sure that it did, but it should have? Question mark? Maybe part of me wants to stop by home and check for it, but at the same time, I don't really want to try to leave my apartment with all the traffic right now. So maybe I'll just go directly to the grocery store and then hope within that period I don't spike my phone yet again. I think that is what I'll do. Go directly to the grocery store. So you guys will accompany me until we're outside of there at the very least, and have a good time doing that. That being said, I don't really know if there's anything else I can really chat about, honestly. I'm basically getting here's some life talk. Basically, I was like, oh, I like to bake a lot, or I used to like to bake a lot. And then probably around like 2019, I got so absorbed with my Japanese trip stuff that I was like, I'm not baking this year because I am already suffering trying to organize my Japan trip. And then so I didn't really do anything that Christmas. And then last Christmas, I didn't really do anything either. I don't know if anything was up during that last Christmas or if I just was being a lazy bum, but I didn't do anything then either. So this year I wanted to get back to the baking game. So I was like, okay, I want to go make some stuff. Go make some cookies with peanut butter cups in them. That sounds like something I might do. Go make some brownie. Gonna make some... What else am I getting? Like some kind of caramel cookie. I don't remember what it was anymore. And I feel like there's one more thing. Oh, and like probably like a fudge kind of thing. A fudgy fudge. So that is, hopefully it's going to turn out. They are a little ambitious. I've never made these before, so I will definitely be just basically following instructions and hope it works out. So that will be an adventure. And then worst case scenario, if it all goes bad, then I'll just, police officer. There we go. Drove by him. If that works out, then, or if it does not work out, then I'll just go like buy some, normal, like packaged baked goods stuff you can make with just adding like water or something like that, right? So we'll probably just do that, and then I'll just call that a holiday season, holiday sugary greeting. So I wanted to make truffles, but come to find out, by the way, truffles apparently, or at least from what I was reading online, you are not supposed to ship them unless you have like ice packs and like are overnighting it. I think it's because the cream cheese in the truffle can like go bad. So while it probably would be okay, I mean, like, at least for me, if somebody sent me a truffle in the mail, I'd be like, oh yeah, baby, I'm getting in that truffle. But not I don't really want to poison people. Like, I've got an iron gut, but most other people don't. Oh, now people in traffic are getting all antsy. I don't know about that. See, I should have started this show before this traffic nightmare happened, so I didn't have to comment on people's driving all the time. Before, when it was just like a nice, smooth ride home. So yeah, that's going to be my baking adventure. So I'm hoping to take one day this weekend to bake. Which, I don't really, I don't know when these will be going up, if at all. But I don't really have a ton of holiday plans outside of baking, and then also I have a couple of like a Christmas party thing for work, and then my going over for like Christmas dinner at my family's house, because I think I need to kind of double check to see what the expectations are with my job. I think during like the time between Christmas and New Year's, it will be kind of like hey, you don't really have to like work, but you need to be like on call essentially in case you need to do something. So I'm debating like on those days, maybe just like really getting into some Buddy Mission Bond and just spend a lot of time doing that, because Buddy Mission Bond is a game I love and I really wish I spent more time with, but I just never do, unfortunately. And a lot of times it's just because I don't really like feel that game has like really long chapters, and I always want to get through a whole chapter because it's like a story arc in that game, right? And I feel like going from start to finish in a story arc is like a nice way to go. And it's probably why when I read manga, I will like gorge myself on manga, because I don't want to stop in the middle of a story arc. For some reason, anime, that's not the case though. But manga, yes, I will suck down whatever number of chapters you give me. Be like, yes, this is mine. So I'll eat all those little bits up. I think it just has to do with the fact that like there's no time tied with a manga chapter. Like the time in a manga chapter is as long as it takes me for me to read it, not it's going to be 20 minutes or something because this whole episode is 20 minutes, because like at that point I know it's going to be the next 20 minutes of my life for this. Where the manga chapter, it's like I can just keep going and then like be like, oh, just one more chapter, because it's in such bite-sized chunks of time I don't have to think about it that much. That would be my best guess as to why. But yeah, buddy mission bond chapters are at least, I'd say, at least as somebody who's like auto translating it and not like, reading it natively, it's probably like 3-ish hours per chapter. It feels really long at the least. So I have to like really make sure that like, hey, if I'm starting at 8 o'clock at night, I'll be done at 11. So, it's basically once I've kind of done everything I need to do to settle down, when I get home, I need to just like basically jump right into that game. And then like by the time I'm wrapping it up, then it is about time I should be getting to the sleepy time at least. Or really at 11, I really should be already in bed because I have to get up at around like 7-ish the next day. So if I were to get like a healthy 8 hours of sleep, I would need to finish my adventure with Luke, Aaron, Chelsea, and what's his name? Monokuma or something like that. I forget. It starts with an M, I think. But the four buddies, buddy mission bonds, finish my adventures with them and go straight to sleep. So, but yeah, I do love that game. I don't know if there's a lot of value in me covering that game in any way. I do know somebody did a review, but I did not watch it yet because I want to kind of finish the game on my own first. And then I think once I'm done with the game, I'll watch to see what they did, and see if that if I overlap a bunch or not. Kind of the key thing with me is I just don't want to make a video that somebody's already made and then like emphasize the exact same points, basically. I want to be able to say my own thing. So, I kind of like to play through a game, get my own thoughts and feelings out of game, solidify those, and then taste the waters a little bit to see who's saying what. So like in the case of like DC Superhero Girls or No More Heroes 3, I had my feelings. I kind of talked about it a little bit on the podcast and everything. And then when I looked at other people's reviews, I was like, oh yeah, they're doing the exact same. They're like, my opinion might very slightly differ from theirs, but at most it like did not really matter. So that's something I really try to pay attention to with that stuff, because I definitely get the appeal of like, hey, personality Ben, we want to hear you say your thoughts on this, even though it's exactly the same as other people. But to me, that just feels like a waste of time. Like, I'm like, oh, well, I can just go work on something else, right? I don't need to make a No More Heroes 3 video if I'm just going to say the thing everybody else is going to say, right? So, and like, I feel like the podcast is where you get the personality Ben opinion kind of thing. I don't know why I keep saying personality Ben. I mean, I guess the point being that like people who want you to like talk about something because of your personality rather than just like wanting to actually know, what, like, I don't think anybody is like, oh, I don't know anything about No More Heroes, and Ben is going to teach me about No More Heroes. The only thing that I think people would want is A, if they do not care about No More Heroes enough to go look up information, or B, would only listen to it if I said something. And that's what the podcast's for, right? I said my little bit, my little piece about it. So anyways, I'm going to park right alongside this car that has this car alarm going off. That's probably pretty good. Maybe. Oh, no, never mind. It's somewhere else in the parking lot. But that is the end of my adventure, the end of my driving adventure. So I'm going to listen to this, see how that on dash sound quality is. And if that's good, then I'll go ahead and stick that little magnet adhesive on there. And then put that there, because where the clip was before, I think is just, or like clipping it directly to my shirt, at least with just like the actual recorder itself rather than like a lapel microphone. I think the quality is just not where I want it to be in that regard. So yeah, unfortunately, for some reason my Bluetooth headphones don't actually connect to my phone, so I can't listen to anything while I'm in the grocery store. But hey, I hope you enjoyed listening to my voice. Thank you so much for coming to Car Talk. If I put this out anywhere, again, I'll probably be a behind the scenes thing on Patreon until I like lock it in, lock what this show is going to be in. Maybe. I don't know. I thought about doing like some stupid stuff that's like on the drive home, I'd like compare two video games that may or may not have anything to do with each other, but it'd be kind of fun to think about. I feel like just weird, stupid stuff to fill time, and maybe something interesting comes out of it. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for coming. Bye.